around the world by sharing inspiring life experiences. With me today is a woman whose life story is full of courage, adventure, and creativity. She is an award winning author, mentor, and adventurer who inspires others to find their worth and pursue their dreams. As usual, we aim to motivate, educate, and inspire you. So grab your warm drinks and let's get it rolling. Hello, Terry, and welcome to Podcast with Sheila.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to host you on our platform. Your journey across the US on a tandem bike in 2020 was incredible. What pushed you to take that adventure and what did it teach you about your life?
So there's together to happen. And the first one is that I had spent 14 years in an emotionally abusive relationship. And when I got out of that relationship, I didn't believe in myself anymore. And I didn't think anyone else believed in me either. And I wanted to do something big and bold, some kind of an adventure that would prove to people that I still had some kind of value. Really, what I needed to do was prove that to myself, but I didn't realize that at the time. And I thought I needed to prove this to other people. I then met Bruce, who became my husband. But at the time that we first met, he also wanted to do an adventure. He wanted to ride across the United States on a bicycle. It was something he's wanted to do since 1976. And when I heard that, I thought, oh, that would be an adventure, especially for someone like me who hadn't been on a bicycle in 40 years. So I asked him, is this something you'll talk about until the day you die? Or are you actually going to do it? And he said, no, I really want to do it. And I said, count me in. I want to do that. Well, as it turns out, he is an experienced cyclist and I'm not. And there's no amount of training that would have ever caught me up to where he was. So we decided to go on a tandem bicycle because a tandem, that's a two-seater, means he can't go faster than me and I can't go slower than him. We have to work together to make this work. So that's what we did. And in the end, I think what I recognized that the biggest lesson for me actually was on the very last day. You know, we're coming up to the ending point. I realize it. I'm laughing, I'm crying, I'm just a complete emotional mess. And I thought, I just rode across the United States on a tandem bicycle. I can do anything I put my mind to. What is it you want? And I wanted very much to be an author. And 14 months later, my first book came out.
So it's about asking ourselves as we get to some point in our lives, what exactly do we want and
Right.
pursuing it, yeah, no matter the odds.
Because once you know what you want, the things that can get in your way that can stop you don't anymore. You find a way around those things because it's something you want and you want it bad enough that you'll work around it. You'll figure it out. If you don't, anything can stop me. I wake up in the morning, it's too cold, it's too hot. I woke up too late, I woke up too early. There's a million excuses. But if it's something you want, then you will work around every excuse that's created for you.
Yeah, beautiful. You've written both fiction and nonfiction. How did
Yeah.
your personal life experiences influence the stories you choose to tell?
You know, it's really hard to separate who you are from who you are as a writer. And so I come out in a lot of my characters. I tell people that you'll usually find me as I am, as I was, as I hope I will eventually become, or sometimes even as I wish I was. Like if I have a character who's a little more adventurous at a younger age. And I kind of wish that had been me, that I hadn't been so afraid, that I had gone out more. And so that happens. And then I think too, just the feelings and the things that you've experienced also come out in your characters, or at least they do for me. I find that, you know, I had a bad marriage, and so that's an easy thing to be able to portray. I've had difficulties paying bills, and so that can also come into play. I had someone that I love pass away, that can come into play. So you take those emotions and those experiences and then they become pieces of your character. I wouldn't say that there's any one character I've written that is entirely just me, but I think I can find myself in just about all of them.
Yeah. As you were talking, this has come up again. So I want to ask you. I think when you started, you had talked about you had a bad marriage, and then you've mentioned it again. And I want to find out how were you able to step out of an emotionally abusive marriage, like you said. Yesterday, the lady, my guest I interviewed, talked on similar topics on a bad marriage and how
Yeah.
she got out and how she represented herself in court and all of that. And it's come up again because I know this kind of thing is beginning to become rampant in the society we live now, where people are going through a lot of difficult marriages and relationship and all that. And some of them are finding it difficult to pull out. And like you said, the longer you stay in, it looks like it takes the better out of you. You lose yourself in it. How would anybody watching us be able to step out of such a bad situation?
I think the first thing you need to recognize is that there isn't necessarily the right time. A lot of people keep waiting for the right time, and there really isn't. There's never going to be a point where everything is exactly perfect and any more than any other thing you do in your life. Like people say, well, wait for the right time to have children. Well, what is that? You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then keep in mind, too, that you as an outsider can't decide for someone else when they can do it because they have to get themselves prepared. But I think what I would tell someone who's in a bad relationship like that is if now isn't the time, if you can't do this yet, start preparing in ways like getting the rest of your life straightened up as much as possible. Make sure that you still have outside friends, people that you can turn to so that when the time comes, you have someone. Make sure that you have some kind of an education or some kind of a skill set. And if you don't, start working on that and see what you can do to make it so that when you do leave, you don't feel like, see, I said to myself, and this is crazy because I had a degree and I really shouldn't have thought this, but my son said, Mom, why don't you leave? And I said, I'll live in a box on the side of the road. What will I do? And that wasn't true, but you begin to believe that. So, start to kind of build those pieces. And the other thing I would say is recognize that as bad as it looks, wherever you're sitting, there is light on the other side. You may not be able to see it yet, but it is there. There is light. There are people who can help you, regardless of what you're being told.
Yeah.
There are people who can help you. There is light on the other side. Life can be better. And you just have to start really believing that. And once you get to the point that you believe that, for me, it turned out I had gotten really angry. He would take our money and he would remove it from the joint account. And then he would go put it in a new account that he would open and I wouldn't have any access to it. Eventually, he'd give me access to that. And then he'd do it again. And I told him, if you ever do that again, I'm leaving. And for 2 years, nothing happened. And then he did it again. And I did leave. And I'm just really thankful that he did it again, because otherwise I might still be there trying to fix this broken mess of a marriage that really wasn't fixable because I was the only one trying to fix it. So.
Yeah. Wow, you couldn't have said it any better. And I think that there's a lot for us to take away from what all that you've said. But after leaving an emotionally abusive marriage, you turned your life around creatively. How did you find the courage to pursue your dreams again?
You know, a lot of it was that ride that I took. I did something that was kind of big and bold and outside of my comfort zone. It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. I wrote a book about my journey. It's called 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure. And it is not about riding across the United States. I mean, it is. It has those stories in it. But what it really is about how to step outside of that box. We always put ourselves in this nice little neat box, and everything outside of that box is scary.
Yeah.
It's unknown. It's like, oh, can I do that? And the answer is yes, you can, and yes, you should. And so, especially if you've gotten out of a bad situation, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a job, or I mean, it could even be just getting away from other family or friends or whatever it is. If you're making that change in your life, I think one of the best ways to really see what you're made of is to push yourself outside of your box. Try something big. It doesn't have to be a bicycle ride across the United States. It could be something as simple as moving to a different city,
Yeah.
getting a different job, deciding you're going back to school. Whatever it is, it could be even something small, really small, like I'd like to learn to paint with watercolors. Something that takes you beyond what you know, and it will kind of prove to you what you can become. Because
Okay.
once you get out of that box and you do something different, and then you have any measure of success. And I don't mean that you now become Picasso. I mean that you have figured out how to hold the paintbrush, right? That little bit of success now gives you, I don't know, like proof that, hey, look, I can learn, I can become, I am, and then you can do more. And that's what it did for me. I mean, I think that was the big thing, is I stepped outside of my box and realized that I am more than I was giving myself credit for.
Wow. As you were talking about stepping outside your comfort zone, something came to mind. And I think I'd shared this in class 2 weeks ago. So I started an MBA program last year in September. And as I stepped into the class, I lost myself. I'm somebody who is very, very confident in my comfort zone. And that is where I have been. And moving into class after 20 years of being away from it. So I did my first degree 20 years ago, and I'm going to do my MBA. And I was late. The first day we got to the class, we started the program, I was late. So I got in very unsettled, and my computer was also messing up. So that added to it. Every question they asked us that day, I got my words mixed up. I would always, you could hear my voice shake. So
Right.
everybody in my MBA class knows that this is a shy person. And yet I'm not a shy person that much when I'm in my comfort zone. So we've been doing this we are quite into it over 7 months now. And then last 2 weeks ago, we were doing a reflection on ourselves, because you have to do that on the course. And for the very first time, I spoke up in class, and I was asked to share my experience and my journey and all of that. And my academic mentor was the one lecturing that day. So I raised my hand, and all of a sudden it was as if I wasn't expecting to raise my hand, but I raised it. And he called me, "Okay, Sheila, do you want to say something?" And I said, "Oh." He said, "Don't worry. If you don't want to talk, that's all right." And I said, "No, I want to talk." So I said, before I started the course, I had so much confidence in me. But I'm realizing that that confidence I had was in my comfort zone. Now, coming out of my comfort zone here made me realize I need to build a different kind of confidence I didn't know I didn't have. So you talking about comfort zone is what is drawing me back to that, saying,
Right.
yes,
Right. Because it makes you force yourself to do things that are different,
yeah,
that are not your everyday, that are not comfortable to you. And then when you finally figure that out, you realize, oh wow,
yeah,
I'm not only capable as whatever, but I'm also capable as, me. I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years. And
yeah,
we did some training. It's not like I said, oh, let's just go ride a bicycle. I mean, we did training, but even so, those first few days on this trip for me were hard, and they were huge. And I cried a lot. It was hard. It was difficult. It was challenging. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't believe in myself. Is this possible? Will I be able to do it? And then at the end, when you look back and you say, I just rode 3,102 miles on a bicycle across the United States, over the Rocky Mountains, through heat, through cold, through rain, through wind, through flat tires, through everything. Yeah, then you change. It's like, I am capable. Would you look at me?
yeah,
And so I think that we should do this for ourselves like more than once in our life. I don't think this should be a one time, Teri just went and did this big adventure and now she doesn't have to do something like that anymore. So I remind myself all the time, what can you do this week that's a little more adventurous?
yeah, yeah.
What's one little thing? So recently my husband passed away, which is unfortunate. I found this wonderful man. We get married and he ended up getting brain cancer, and he passed away a year ago. And so this last year for me has been very challenging. In addition to grieving, I'm trying to figure out, what does life look like as a 62-year-old woman who's single again?
Again,
you
yeah,
know and and didn't want to be. It's not like I asked for it, right? It's like
Yeah.
all of a sudden here it's thrust on me. And so there's certain things that I find to be really difficult. I don't like going to a restaurant alone. I find that to be highly uncomfortable. Traveling alone, these kinds of things. So I'm constantly pushing myself to try something, even if it's small, even if it's just, okay, can you go sit in McDonald's for 15 minutes and eat your burger?
Yeah.
And that to other people may sound, well, that doesn't even mean anything, but it is, because it's outside of my comfort zone. And so each time you push
Mhm.
yourself outside and you survive it, you can say, look, I'm capable. I am capable. I can now do that.
Yeah.
So now what's the next thing on the list?
Wow. Wow. As a mom, grandmother, and author, how do you balance life's responsibilities with your creative work?
Yeah, balance is not an easy thing. And I think, at least for me, I struggle with it because I'm kind of an all or nothing person. When I'm writing, that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything else. I don't even hear anything else. And then when I'm doing something else, I'm not writing at all. I'm not thinking about writing. And so you have to kind of figure out, like, how do you allow that to happen? And for me, it's chunks of time. That's what I need. I like to get really immersed in something. So I give myself a chunk of time for writing. And maybe it's a whole week. Like this whole week, I'm going to do nothing but write. And I'm going to go somewhere else and nobody's going to bother me. But I know that when I come out of that, I can now go and spend 3 days with my family and the grandchildren. And, so I think it's what works for you. Some people, it's very scheduled. I want an hour to write every day, and that's what they do. Other people, more like me, where we chunk it into bigger pieces of time. But it's really looking at what feeds you and what do you need in your life, and then making time for it. And if that means getting rid of some things in your life because they really aren't feeding you, then do that.
Yeah.
Definitely get rid of those things that aren't in some way helping you. I'm not saying go quit your job and become unable to pay your bills, because your job is helping you. But I am saying that there are probably things that you're doing in your life that really aren't. For instance, you spend 2 hours doom scrolling on social media. What could you do with that 2 hours that would be more beneficial to you? It could be sleep. It could be getting exercise. It could be spending time with family. It could be starting a hobby. It could be all kinds of things. So kind of look and really think about what feeds you and
Yeah.
what makes you happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Mentoring youth and women who struggle to find their worth is a big part of your mission. What's one key piece of advice you give that always resonates?
Especially to young women, I try to remind them that they are valuable right now. They don't have to get to be something. They don't have to be older. They don't have to be more beautiful. They don't have to be thinner. They don't have to be anything. That they have value as they are right now. And I remind them that the world is going to do a really good job of trying to make them think otherwise.
Yeah.
And life will hit them with things that will make them forget their value, so that they need to learn it now and hold on to it and not let somebody take it from them. That their value is intrinsic. It's there. And nobody can take that from you. You can give it away, but nobody can take it. And so don't let the world jerk that from you. Find that value and really hold on to it, because you have value, I have value, we all have value, but the world will tell us that we don't.
Yeah.
I'm too old, I'm too heavy, I'm I'm too many things. There's lots of things that I could have the world telling me, and none of those things really matter.
Yeah.
I have value.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is that something that I learned on the trip, I I had everything in me to be successful that I needed. It's just that it had been buried and I didn't know how to access it anymore. And so, we all have within us the things that we need to be successful. And so if you can't find them, then find someone who can help you. It might be a parent, it might be a pastor, it might be a teacher, it might be a counselor, but there's someone who can, or it might even be a book. You might read something that helps pull that up. But we all have within us what we need to be successful. And now it's just a matter of accessing it.
Yeah. You're right with that. Like everybody's unique in their own ways. I always say, I cannot be you, you cannot be me. If I say that in the sense that there are some unique things that I have that you may not have, and there are some unique things that you have I may not have. There are certain things that it's only Terry who can do it and do it very well. No one else can do it. Like somebody who's, oh, you can be easily replaced. Yes, of course, but the person who may be replacing me may not do the job or whatever it is the same
Right.
way I do. Exactly.
Right. Because your experiences in your life are different than mine. How you
Exactly.
handled them is different than how I handled them. How you experienced them are different. We could have both had the very same, lived in the same household with the same parents and experienced the same thing, but felt it differently and dealt with it differently. And that makes us different people. And so you're right. We all have skills and strengths, and how our weaknesses play into all of that. All of those things kind of forge who we are. And we're all very unique and we're all very valuable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. From homeschooling your children to publishing award-winning books, what mindset shift helped you achieve such diverse accomplishments?
Yeah, I think it was the recognition finally that I do have value. I am worthwhile, and I'm not done. I think there after 14 years in an abusive relationship, I was in my mid 50s. I kind of had this thought that maybe life was done for me, and that at this point I would just kind of, I was going to have grandchildren and I would be a grandma and that would be about it. And I don't know, I guess I just thought that my life, as far as the living portion of it, was kind of over. And now I realize that so far from true. I've got lots of years left, lots of things that I want to do. And so it's that mindset shift of, yeah, I'm not finished. And I don't want to be finished until I close my eyes for the last time.
Yeah.
Like, I saw a meme that made me laugh, and it was like, when I die, I want to come into heaven with my hair on fire, screaming, "Wee!" you know, and that's kind of what I want. I want to keep growing and experiencing and learning and becoming. And I hope that every year when I take a kind of stock as to where I am, that I'm in a different place.
Yeah.
That I have moved forward, that I have come up with new ways of looking at the world, new skills that I've developed, new friends that I've made, those kinds of things. I always want to see me moving forward.
Why did you decide to homeschool your children? What informed that decision?
So you know how sometimes things just happen, and it's not like I had ever started out in my life saying, "Oh, I'm going to homeschool." But my son was one of those kids that just picked up on things very easily. He taught himself to read at 3 years old, and
No.
he just was that kid. So now it's time for kindergarten. And I know he's going to be a problem in kindergarten because he's already reading. He knows everything they're going to teach in the kindergarten system. And we were living in a community where the county schools and the city schools were combining for the first time. And the teachers were angry and the curriculum was a mess. And I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to put him in that. I can homeschool kindergarten. So
Yeah.
now kindergarten's over, and I go to put him into first grade. And I said that, we need to get him tested for, like the gifted classes. And they said, oh, we don't start that until the second grade.
Mm.
I thought, well,
Interesting.
then I'll homeschool in first grade too, because in North Carolina, where I live, you do not have to put a child in school until they turn 7.
Oh,
And my first grader was going to turn 7 at the end of May. And I thought, I don't even have to tell the state I'm doing it. I'm just going to homeschool first grade. Then I was hooked. So now I've done it for 2 years, and I enjoyed it so much. Teaching, watching him learn, helping him be who he was. It was very, very fun because there were certain things that he didn't do as well. And it was okay. He could do those at a kindergarten level while he was reading at a fifth grade level. And because I homeschooled, I could let him be who he was and progress at the rate that fit him best. And they could be different for every subject that we did. And I loved watching him go into the library and pick different books that he was interested in and those kinds of things. And then, as it turns out, my second child had a reading delay issue where she did not learn to read until she was 10. And so, because I homeschooled, I was able to read out loud to her and keep her. She was completely at grade level everywhere except reading. But
Mm,
once she began to read, she caught up quickly and did fine. And I just imagined her in a public school system.
yeah,
It could have been horrible for her.
yeah.
It could have
Mm,
really been horrible. And as it turns out, she graduated from college and all kinds of things that I don't know could have happened with her personality. She would have been devastated to be the kid that kept getting pulled out, who was held back for a year, all of those things. It would have changed who she was. So yeah, it turned out to be a wonderful thing. And it started out just because, and then it ended up because I loved it. So
wow.
yeah.
Adventure seems to be a recurring theme in your life. What role does stepping outside your comfort zone play in personal growth?
I mean, people do not grow unless they're doing something hard. You know, if your life is easy and you're skating by, oh, it feels good. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing better than a little quiet peace, but you're not learning anything. You're not becoming, you're not growing. Growth doesn't happen. I have a granddaughter and she really doesn't like to be wrong. And so if she's learning something new and she gets it wrong, she gets very frustrated very quickly. And I keep trying to help her understand that if you knew it all already, you wouldn't have to be in school, right? And that isn't how we grow. That isn't how we increase our knowledge. This isn't how we become better. Those things always happen in times of trial, in times of trouble, in times of difficulty. That's when we grow. And so, yeah, the stepping outside of your comfort zone, it's really necessary if you want to become something more. I mean, if you're perfectly happy skating along as exactly what you are and you plan to be that until the day you die, well then fine. You've got it figured out. But if you want to be more than who you are, then you've got to stretch, and that requires getting out of the comfort zone. That's just as simple. I don't know how to put it any different than that. You aren't growing if everything's easy.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, really. You have to stretch because the moment you
Yeah.
stay confined in one place and you've not stretched, you've not improved your life in any way. But as you keep stretching, you keep taking territories, you keep becoming better, you keep building yourself up. And I think you grow. That's the only way you can grow, putting yourself in a
Yeah.
comfort zone. Yeah. So you couldn't have said it any better. I think you have said it all. Can you share a moment when you doubted yourself but persevered and how that shaped you to be who you are today?
So there was a point on the ride. We were going from one place in Montana to another. There was nothing in between. We had to go 70 miles that day. There was no choice. And 70 miles on a tandem bicycle is a long way.
It is.
This day, this day was hilly. It was hot, very hot. There we had not one, not two, but three flat tires that day. And by the end of that day, I was so exhausted. I was not having fun. My husband was exhausted. He was not having fun. And I decided I was done. We had gone 1,000 miles of this 3,000-mile journey, and I just wanted to rent a car and come back home. I was done, completely done. And so I kept a blog the whole way across the United States, and I wrote in my blog and let everyone read it. I
Yeah.
think I'm done. This is not fun anymore. And I had a friend reach out, and I thank her every day in my mind for doing this for me. But she said, "What you've done so far is amazing, and if you quit today, you do not have to hang your head. Most people have never ridden 1,000 miles and have gone over the Rocky Mountains. So you are it's just amazing. However, don't quit on a bad day. You will always wonder if you could have made it." She said, "Quitting is fine, but not on a bad day. Why don't you try to take an easy day tomorrow or maybe even a break and not go anywhere tomorrow and see how you feel in a couple of days before you make your decision?" And as it turns out, the following day, we had a wonderful day. It was one of those where the wind was behind us. We made it to our final destination at 10 o'clock in the morning and had all day to nap. And it was just like you couldn't have asked for a better day. And from that point on, we made it. I mean, there were other bad days, But I would do that in my mind and say, today is just a bad day. The reason I want to quit is because I'm tired or I'm frustrated or I'm hungry or I'm all of those things, right? And when you give yourself a chance to step back and then analyze it, is this really doing for me what I want? And so I tell people all the time, definitely quit something if it's not good for you. You know, if you look at it and you say, this is no longer suiting me, it's okay to say, okay, I'm changing my path. You don't have to keep going simply that I made my bed, I have to lie in it. You don't have to. You know, you're allowed to say, this is no longer suiting me. But don't quit on the day that you got angry. Don't quit on the day that you and your spouse had a fight. Don't quit on the day that you're so tired that you can't even think straight and you just can't imagine ever doing this again. Those are bad days to quit because you can't be logical. You can't think pros and cons. All you can think about is I'm miserable and I'm done, right? And that's the way I felt that day. So yeah, I think that's something that I hold on to a lot now. When things seem hard, it's like, okay, we're not quitting today. We can think about it. What day will I think about it? Well, I'll give myself 3 more days. And usually by that point, you look and you say, no, I'm good. I am good. It's tough, but I can do this and I'm good. So,
Wow, that's a powerful takeaway, though, because as you were talking, something just flashed into my mind. And just this afternoon, before came preparing for the podcast, I was going through some messages I'd received 2 weeks ago. And the moment I read those messages, I was so angry. And weeks after reading it today, I was to myself, I was saying, oh, it wasn't that bad. So
yeah,
it's like giving yourself time to process it. You read it differently than at the heat of the moment when the message came and you were all boiling up and everything else was just getting on your last nerve.
absolutely. And I think that, it's okay to have those big feelings. Go ahead and feel them. Let them out, feel them, but don't make any permanent decisions while you're in that spot. If I made permanent decisions in the midst of my big emotions, and I have huge emotions, I'm a huge emotion person. I go, the world is ending as we know it kind of emotions.
Mhm.
And if I made decisions at that point, I'm going to make really bad decisions.
Yeah.
These decisions are not going to be good for me in the end. But I have the feelings. I allow myself to say the world is ending. And eventually I get to the point where I say, well, it's really not ending. Let's take a look at this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. 9 times out of 10, you look at it and say, oh, it's really not as bad as I had made it out to be. Or even if it is, I now know how I want to handle it.
Yeah.
And how I want to handle it isn't my first thought. And my first thought is we're killing someone, we're moving away to a foreign country and we're never coming back here again. We're never speaking to people. Those are like my first thoughts. And
Yeah.
none of those none of those really take care of situations. And then once you've had a chance to breathe, think about it, you look at, and now you can say, okay, really the best way to handle this is.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a much better decision for you.
Yeah. 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 For anyone listening who dreams of writing, traveling, or pursuing something they feel is impossible, what encouragement would you give them?
Do it. Do it. Don't put it on a list. Don't put it on your bucket list. Oh, I hate a bucket list. I think those are the worst inventions that we have ever created. If there's something you want to do, work toward it. Start today working toward it. It doesn't mean you can do it today. When we decided to go on this big trip, it was a year and a half before we were able to take the trip. But we were doing things toward it all the time. We were taking training rides. I was figuring out what were the best shorts for me to wear. I was finding the shoes that were going to be the most comfortable. I was trying out different kinds of pedals to figure out what would work. All of those things, because it wasn't a bucket list item. It was, we are going on this trip. So what can we do? And so, yeah, my advice is if it's something you really want, then find something today that you can do to get started toward that, whatever that is. You want to learn to paint? Find a book, buy some paintbrushes, take a free class online, do something, find something to move you toward whatever that thing is that you want. Don't wait. Don't say, well, when I'm older, when I'm thinner, when I'm, when my children have grown, you don't know that you get that.
Yeah.
You don't know. So go do it.
Yeah.
Start it. Don't wait. If it's something you really want. And if you're not willing to do it, look at that list again and say, do I really want it? Because if you're not willing to do something today to get started, you might not really want it. It might be someone else's dream and you've just kind of assume it's yours.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, that's lovely. Is there anything else we've not talked about, like your books that you would like to mention before we finally wrap up?
I've got, in addition to my 10 Little Rules for Double Butted Adventure, I have 3 novels that are out. I have another novel coming out in April. And really, the best way to find out about me, what I write, I've got a podcast where I talk with other authors, all of that. The best place is just head over to my website, and it's so easy. It's my name, TeriMBrown.com. That's Teri with 1 R. There you will find everything about me. Like if you want to know about me, you'll find it there. And you can even read the blog I kept going across the United States on the tandem.
Wow, that's beautiful. Would like to say a massive thank you, Teri, for coming on Podcast with Sheila today.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved being here.
Great. If you've been listening in, this is season 2, episode 144 of our podcast series, where we bring seasoned guests with inspiring life stories and experiences to share with us. Do not miss out on all these lovely experiences. Subscribe and be notified when a new episode is released. Whilst at it, please drop us a rating. Our prayer for you this week is that you become an advocate and a lover of peace. Remember, change begins with you. Until we meet again, have a brilliant evening. Bye. Thank you.